Welcome back to the Augustana Observer podcast. I'm your podcast and video editor, Jaron Smith. This week, podcaster Michael Box sat down with guests to discuss the fencing club at Augustana. I want to thank you all for listening to this week's episode, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, so you said your name's Charlie. You want to spell that for me?
Charlie.
And your last name?
Zielinski.
And you're sophomore?
I'm a junior.
Junior. What year are you graduating?
2025.
2025, okay. And you said your name was Morgan?
Morgan. My last name is Janes, Jan like Nancy, ES.
Okay.
Then I'm also a junior.
All right.
Graduating 2025.
Okay. All right, so what can you tell me about fencing club or fencing in general?
Right. So fencing is basically two people with swords, and you're on a strip, and it's basically whoever makes contact with the other person first gets a point.
Okay.
And then you play to 15 points.
Okay.
And there's three different kinds of swords that we use. So there's three different.
There's a foil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is more, it's more the basic form. It's more about point control. You have the least amount of target area with foil. Then you have épée, which is E-P-E-E. It's French.
Yeah, it's
okay.
E-P-E-E.
There's
an accent over the first and second E.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that,
first and second?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that has a little bit more range of motion.
All right.
And then the final and the most fun is saber. S-A-B-R-E. Saber fencing.
And
what's the purpose of that?
Saber
specific?
fencing, so the difference between foil, épée, and saber is foil is when you are reaching out for an attack and you will poke your opponent.
Okay.
Saber, you will, for lack of a better term, you will whip your opponent.
It's slashing.
It's a slash.
Okay.
It's like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like pirate fencing.
Okay, because that was going to be one of my questions down there, more of a movie reference for people who need that visual.
Sure.
Like for me, I it'll kind of age me, but one of my favorite movies is The Princess Bride.
Of course,
and
that's what we're thinking
you have
of.
a very, very famous sword fighting scene there.
Even Monty Python, Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Now, how did each of you get started with fencing? Was it something you did here at school, or was it something that you did before?
I got started with it in 2018 after graduating high school.
Okay.
There is a very profound fencing school in Iowa City that I actually started attending. And then when I got here to Augustana and found out that they had a fencing club, I joined almost immediately. So I've been fencing 5, going on 6 years.
6 years, okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
I started my freshman year here.
Okay.
Incoming freshman, I was like, oh sweet, Augustana has a fencing club, and I just wanted a sword fight really badly, and it's kind of just like a personal interest. I joined as soon as I could.
Okay. You guys just recently had your kickoff meeting. How was that for you guys, and did it go as you expected, or was there something that surprised you?
It was a really awesome kickoff meeting. That was actually the biggest practice we've ever had since I've been here.
Yeah.
We had about 17 people there, which was awesome. Our club's been kind of rebuilding since COVID.
Okay.
My freshman year, I was one of 2 people in the club, and I've been just trying to get the club back up to being a prominent figure on campus.
It was really surprising with the turnout how many freshmen were not just interested, but like enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
That's not something we usually see. We usually see a lot of like apprehension.
Not quite sure what's going on.
Yeah, we have some freshmen that are they're diligent about coming to practice. They listen rather than play games. They want to do the drills. They want to get better. They're really passionate, which I was happy to see.
Now, can some of the increased participation, is that maybe correlated to the size of the incoming class? Or is that more of a, I don't know if I'm looking for the right word, or is that more of just kind of a fluke?
I don't think it's correlated much to the size of the class, just because like we are like a team and like a club, but fencing's such like an individual sport that it's really just like how passionate each person is about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say to go off of that, like our executive board, so the fencers who have the most experience are also the ones who are still actively practicing the most.
Okay.
So the freshmen get started with training, and then the ones that want to practice are practicing extra, but they're still not putting in the same dedication that the fencers who have, you know, Daniel has 8 years, I have 6, Charlie has several, Cohen has 8 or 10.
Sarah has a lot.
Yeah. So it's really good to see they're enthusiastic. I think they'll go far with it, but I don't think that it's necessarily correlated to the class size. I think it's more individualistic because they really do enjoy it, and I hope we can push them.
Has anything you've learned through fencing had an impact on your life, whether it's, you know, through squirrel work or...
Yeah, definitely. Discipline, patience, I would say consistency of our practices. And I know we meet twice a week. Outside of that twice a week, I practice fencing another 2 days a week. And so consistently showing up and doing all of the footwork and doing all of the boring things and the warm-up and the stretches, even though I want to get out and go, keeping consistent and always showing up, keeping disciplined and doing the things I don't want to, even when I don't want to, because I know that I have to in order to get better, has really translated over into my studying habits and grades and classes.
For me, it's been because our numbers have grown so rapidly in the last 2 years. Being the president during that time and just watching the club like transform and like just like watching this like friend group emerge out of like almost nothing has just been like spectacular for me in my college experience.
All right. What are some of the goals that a student new to fencing club might expect to achieve, or expectations that might be expected of them?
We expect them, at least within the first semester, to learn all of the necessary foot movements to perform in an amateur match.
Okay.
So there is an advancement where you're moving forward. There's a certain form of retreat where you're moving backwards. Additionally, there's lunges where you're attacking. We teach them the terminology right of way, which is who has right of way during an attack and a counterattack movement, as well as the additional.
Yeah, right of way is basically like a tiebreaker.
Okay.
It's like who's in control of the point during the live match.
So by the end of a semester, they typically would know how to fence basic foil fencing and perform in amateur matches fairly competently.
Okay. So then a follow-up to that, what's the difference between like amateur matches and professional matches? Now, I believe the Olympics
Yes,
has fencing as a sport.
it does. So
It's
those.
one of the oldest Olympics.
It's one of the oldest Olympic sports, and the difference between the amateur and the pro matches comes down to a lot of really, really minute details. So we have a form of fencing that we practice later on in the spring with the more experienced fencers, which is called electric fencing.
Okay.
And it's where everything you're wearing has some sort of metal involved, and you are connected to some electricity generating boxes essentially, and a machine that will read when a point is gotten. And so in an amateur match, you have to focus on right of way, you have to focus on your form, not going out of bounds, things like that. There's usually going to be a judge or someone who's going to be officiating the match. A pro match, they're much faster, They're much more difficult. They're longer. They require much more stamina. Some of the pro matches we've had here at Augustana, I have fought in 15 to 21 point matches. When we first start off with foil fencing, these kids are fencing in 3 to 5 point matches.
Okay.
So it's a lot about building consistency and muscle memory. And so by the end of a semester, they should be able to get through a 5 point match or even a small 5 point tournament. Once they're a little bit more advanced, they're going to be doing 15 point matches, 21 point matches. They're going to be, the electric fencing teaches them essentially as soon as you attack, when the metal tip of the blade touches the metal jacket, a machine will go off and make a buzzer. So even if a judge can't see it, if the movement happens too fast, there's a tiebreaker.
It's still, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe you guys can tell me a little bit about the history of the fencing club here at Augie. How has it been something that's gone for a long time, or is it, I know you said you're kind of been trying to help rebuild it since COVID.
So we're actually, our founder, Keith Toms, founded it in 1999, I think. Let me check that. 1999 to 2002 was the first president's tenure. So we have a whole list of like past presidents. That's how I've been able to keep track of the years. So I'm currently the 21st president of the club. And yeah, we've been around since 1990.
25 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not bad. Let's see.
So we have a lot of, like, COVID was unfortunate because like the club kind of like lost a lot of people then, and I've been like looking back and trying to find like.
We have a lot of alumni we've reached out to.
Yeah, alumni and traditions.
We
Try
do
and bring back.
We do an alumni tournament every spring where we bring back as many alumni as we can. The last one we did pre-COVID had a huge turnout. It was like 60 or 70 fencers. And it was everyone from, I think we had everyone all the way back to the early 2000s, like 2003, 2004 students that were there that were still fencing, that are, much further on in their lives and their careers. That was really fun.
Let's see. I think my last question for you guys is, when are your meetings, where you hold them at, and who should students maybe contact if they're interested in joining?
Sure, yeah. Our meetings this semester are Tuesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. And Saturdays from 10 to 12, so 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And they'll always be on Court 3 in PepsiCo Recreation Center. Court 3 is the one all the way in the back, and if they want to get in contact about it, certainly email me. Just like look up Charlie Zielinski on your email or something, or reach out to Don Umland. He's the director of PepsiCo and our club advisor.
Okay. Yeah, I interview him tomorrow. So
sweet. Yeah. He's a really fun guy.
And maybe one last question is, what kind of students generally are interested in fencing? Like, do you see a specific type of student that comes in, or is it kind of just more of a?
We've seen a lot of students that try it out because Augustana offers a lot of like alternative sports.
Okay.
Like badminton and. Like
volleyball
and things like that. So it's I would say it's students that are not necessarily going to be like varsity football, baseball players, swimmers. It's students that want to try kind of different types of sports out.
Okay.
As far as like, we really get people kind of like from all over.
Lots of different backgrounds for sure.
Yeah, I know. Like, a lot of us are STEM majors. A lot of there's a lot of kids who come in from theater because theater offers a stage combat class, so it's kind of like they already have some background.
That sounds like that'd be interesting.
It is. One of our former presidents is studying to be an attorney at Loyola in Chicago, and he got to take some stage fighting there, where he got to work with some replica weapons from the medieval times.
Okay.
He sent me some pictures that were pretty cool of just stuff that he got to work with,
Yeah.
pieces and stuff like that.
All right. And then, is there anything else that someone might want to know about fencing club that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah. We're thinking of, now that the club's kind of getting back on its feet, we're really interested in getting back into some matches with other schools.
Okay.
So last year we had a school called Scattergood Friends School, like a small Iowa school, come
Okay.
here, and we did a shared practice last fall. And I got in contact with that coach again. We're going to be planning something, but I'm also trying to reach out to other coaches and see if we can maybe travel somewhere this year and get into like some amateur matches or tournaments. And we're also trying to get some fencing merchandise this year too.
Some swag.
Some
Yeah.
swag.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing some logo designing and stuff like that. I would say one other good thing too is that if anyone is interested in coming just to see what fencing is, we always offer people can come and watch, and if they have questions, we can stop. And every time we get new members, we always encourage them, bring a friend for a night and just let them watch. They have a good time just seeing what we do. And if they're apprehensive or if that piques their interest, just show up.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure when they put this up on the website because I'm still learning that stuff because I just had my first meeting and stuff. So I really appreciate your guys' time.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I know more about fencing now than I did beforehand. So. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Thanks for
again,
the
thank you again.
opportunity.
Yeah. Appreciate the shirt.
Well, maybe if you could start by confirming the spelling of your name for me.
Or you mean Umland? Yeah, it's Don Umland, and that's UMLAND,
And you're the
Director of Campus Recreation. I think this is my 8th or 29th year here.
So you've been around for the time that the fencing club's been back.
Ever since the building was built in '95, I came with it. Came right
Okay.
out of grad school, so I've helped to, take what club sports we had, those that have formed, or wanted to form, and we kind of help them massage their way into existence. And a lot of them have been around for quite a long while, including fencing. I'd say they're one of our longest standing clubs we've had.
Now, are you the faculty advisor for all the different clubs, or
No.
just specifically?
I just oversee the clubs as part of my position as campus rec director.
Okay.
So, in terms of with me and my relationship with them would be, their schedules to be able to utilize the building or practices, making sure all their documentation is in proper form, including waivers as an example.
Right.
If some of the sports host an event, I'm involved in that. If they're traveling, I'm involved in their hotel reservations and making sure they've got, they've met the requirements if they want to rent vehicles, because I have to provide those procedures to do so. And budgets,
Okay.
I think, would be the top things that are involved with any sport club. And some travel more, some are more, in-house, like fencing, even though they do have some relationships with the public, and some are go out and compete against other schools.
Yeah, I know they were. Charlie was mentioning that he had been reaching out to some of the schools that have fencing clubs themselves to see about doing some
Competition or
type.
just at least some joint friendlies.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what can you tell me about the history of Augie's fencing club?
I know early on in my existence, which is, we're going back to 1995, that I would say within the first 5 years, as far as I know, there may have even been a fencing club on campus that wasn't directly related to falling under my realm. I think
Okay.
they're probably one of those that fell back then. And then when the position came about, there were selected sport clubs, and the social clubs aren't necessarily mine to manage, but those that are more activity-based. So it kind of fell under that realm. I would say their numbers have consistently over, and I'm spitballing here, 15 to 20 years, have probably always had 30 to 40 kids involved in it, with some fringe kids that obviously come and go, but
Right.
probably 20 to 25 that have always been a core that have been part of that group
Every year.
that practices.
Yeah, I know when I was talking with the two yesterday, they said Charlie mentioned that this year he said there was 17 or 18 new faces just from like an incoming.
Well, and their biggest hook is obviously they can put some messages out, but the Student Activities Fair, which is basically a freshman or first year based, I shouldn't say first year, but over the weekend that the students move in, there's a lot of activities that are driven towards the first year student. And the Student Activities Fair, which is an event that has taken place in here when weather has dictated it, but they try to do it outside when they can. We'll have basically every club, organization, Greek, non-Greek, social, you name it, they're there. It's a recruiting fair.
Right.
And traditionally they do quite well in terms of a draw, because you think about it, fencing isn't a tradition event that most high school kids that are probably involved with, at least as a high school sport.
Yeah, and when I was in high school.
I don't know if I could name you. So you really think of it as a club activity that's typically outside the high school governance, but obviously a lot of kids are involved in it.
Right.
And they get here and either A, they've done it, a few, or B, find it intriguing enough that you get those 17 to 18 kids that jump in.
Yeah.
And there are other like sports like that, and the one that comes to mind is we have a crew or a rowing club.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. You don't think that a large amount of kids are sculling or crew in high school unless they're in a specific club with a YMCA and so forth.
Right.
So I think those two clubs do quite well for themselves, considering that the background is limited for a lot of these kids.
Let's see. Now, do you go to their meetings at all, or?
They have to meet with me periodically. I don't necessarily attend their meetings, but the club officers, which there is a list that is coordinated that I have the complete list for everyone, but I always expect when we have our court, or at least once a semester, we usually meet, if not twice. That's with the club officers. That's usually the vice president and vice president. Now, if they want to bring additional members like a treasurer or somebody, the social committee or whatever,
Right.
they're certainly welcome to do so. But my connections obviously start at the beginning of the year, where we need to make sure selected documents are in their hands to make sure they're filled out by those new students. And then also making sure that, as I start dialoguing with them like in August, before they get here, because we're like, okay, what do you want to do for a schedule? And that's a big jigsaw puzzle, because you're trying to mesh the club sports around the daily operation of the building, which, is for the students, with their open recreation, plus anything that's associated with intramurals and club sports. So, and then varsity sports that use our building periodically as well. So, to get those schedules early, and then obviously stay in touch with the officers for whatever needs to be done, is essential to start pre-academic year, and then obviously throughout the year, obviously those budgets that are allotted, to make sure they're maintaining within, or to see if there's anything new or unusual that's come up that needs to be purchased or bought, when they reassess.
Okay. Let's see. Kind of touched on some of my questions without me having to ask them, so that's
okay.
pretty
That's
awesome.
That's okay.
What's one piece of advice that you do talk to, as you give students in general, or with fencing club, that you think that maybe is something that the general, in general, students should?
I think it's almost thematic to all sport clubs versus just fencing club. And so let's start there. We get a lot of kids that come in early and they want to get involved. It's really an interesting dichotomy. You'll have your selected students that kind of just want to stay in their own shell and do their thing. And then you got an amount that wants to do everything. And I'm careful to tell those individuals that, hey, don't take on too much early on, because remember, your academics need to be first and get off to a good, sound start.
Right.
I also urge our club officers that even though they're doing a social club in its own way, you know, you have an opportunity as upperclassmen to make sure they're meeting their academic needs. You know, they can talk about that with them. But if they also recognize that somebody might be having, you know, I guess for lack of a better definition, personal issues, to know that they have resources through the club officers, because obviously they may not be there to solve it, but they can direct it to me or somebody that on campus that can help them, whether it be academically or personally. If they come to me about it and say, hey, I have a concern about a student, I'm immediately going to communicate with the Dean of Students office. You know, so we want to make sure the student is having as good of an experience here, and if they're going down a path that maybe is not as positive as it should be, to know they have avenues. You know, because clearly that student has reached out to try to participate in something.
Right.
Which that's a huge plus. And for probably the majority of the kids, this becomes a non-issue. But if you recognize that somebody might be having personal issues and we can get them some help, that's what we should be doing. So I really tell our leads, you know, those officers, you know, be cognizant of, you know, ask them how they're doing. Which pretty much goes without saying. Most of them do it anyway. But I really try to strive for them to be conscious, and, you know, if that's happening, hey, come talk to me. I'll lead you in the right direction.
Let's see. And then I guess my last question would be, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think other students should know?
I think it's really interesting. I don't know if interesting is the word, but, you know, as a director of campus recreation, there is an inordinate amount of time that is spent on sport clubs, because it is definitely a step above intramurals. You know, the kid that wants to play intramurals can sign up with his, you know, his buddies, go play the event, and be on their merry way. When you find the student that's a club sport athlete, and that can be a very widespread, like I mentioned, because there are some clubs, like, for example, men's and women's club volleyball or a rugby program, where they're pretty, you know, they're practicing 2 to 3 times a week and going out and competing on weekends. So it's not a varsity sport by no means, nor do they they aren't looking for the varsity sport experience, but for whatever reason, they're still engaged into that sport or activity enough that they want to put in a solid amount of time, you know, to go compete. Those people will ask me, well, you know, they'll see me behind the scenes and they're like, well, are you working on sport clubs again? I said, yeah. I mean, we've got over 20 sport clubs that, you know, that vary from just practicing within to going out to compete and travel. That takes a large amount of time. And I'm not want to be ignorant to it, but realistically, it's a commitment of time. And when you have just a campus rec director, I really have to be wise with my time to make sure I give those club sports time. And you think about it, they're going to roll in individually at just different times. So when you've got 20-something clubs trying to make appointments with you at different times, some less, some more,
Right.
And I want to give them their time because they're doing something more than just casually getting together. And I think I have a good relationship with them where they know if they walk in my door that I'm going to give them my time and my energy to make sure they're successful. And that's important to me. So I think that's very important to not, you know, for a school the size we are, for the amount of intramurals we run and the amount of sport clubs we offer, I think it's pretty healthy. And that's great because the kid here at Augie can do, you know, besides our sport clubs, there's a lot of things this campus offers with activities, and we're just a part of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure when this gets posted on the website.
Yeah.
This is my first assignment, so
Oh, great.
we'll see how things go and stuff.
On your way out at the front desk, there is more copies of this club sport contact information so you can see how many different clubs we actually offer.
Okay.
Which then if you ever want to reach out to a different one, the contact.
Then I have the information there.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.